It's amazing to see so many wonderful diversity is my middle name these days. It seems to be the answer to the problem that we read about. That's the way I was raised. I don't write any scripts anymore. Hopefully by the prayers and the meditations and the conscious contact with God, I'd like to be see-through. It's the only way that young people will listen because they have see-through vision. So if you're not telling the truth, they're gone. So it's my devotion to get the attention of young people these days, which seems to be natural for me. And when they check me out, they don't see much of a lie. But if you got them, then you got them. And they can be our salvation today if we teach them properly, because most of them these days have not been taught anything. They have mothers and fathers who are now more than 15 years older than them. And they were not taught anything. But there's no villain in my story. It's just the way it has been for generations and decades. There's no bad man, there's no good guys. It's just mankind. So I don't write this script. I just look and see what combination of people I see, and I know what to say. Have been taught these lessons, starting with the Bible, about even Adam and Eve had flaws, obviously, and so did Cain and Abel, so there's no blaming one another. But I come from a neighborhood after the Depression in Brooklyn, New York, where there was nobody who was upper class or lower class at that particular time. We were all poor. So if I wanted to play, I played a thing called stickball, which was a broomstick handle, but the broom cut off. And we played in the street, and if you hit a home run, that's because you hit the ball 3 sewers. Third base was the Ford over there on the left. And then we go in the schoolyard and we play a thing called punch ball. It was us, a fist and a ball. And all the girls had was chalk and some rope. And the creation of that society across America was a great symbol of the spirit during and after the Depression, that we kind of created our personality right then because we came from adversity. Now, in school, I remember doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and you know how when you're young, you do the Pledge of Allegiance, you not really know what you're saying. You know, you pray, now I lay me down to sleep and go, good night. You know. So you put your hand up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the Republic, and I thought we were told the Republic to a man by the name of Richard Stans. I said, who is this Richard Stans? So I looked up in the book, Richard Stans. So finally it hit me, to the Republic for which it stands. Then you go back to the Lord's Prayer and you realize what you're saying. As you grow up, you learn these lessons, and the lesson school's never out, y'all. I want to take some time to congratulate that lady who was married to the Tuskegee Airmen. That touches me because myself, and you know who Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is, the man is something, we produced something in Lincoln Center, and it's called, it's about the Tuskegee Airmen. And it was about the reunion of the liberators of the 729th Regiment Armory in Harlem. And how this happened was that Mary McLeod Bethune, you can look her up if you don't know who she was a great activist as far as our equality was concerned. And her best friend was Eleanor Roosevelt. The two of them were thick as thieves. So after one wonderful evening, Eleanor comes running back to her husband, who was sitting in a wheelchair by now, and he's a little worried because of the war. And he's got a little bit of cutty sock too much, you know. But he's still a great man of history. So she took him and she said, you got to listen to me. I just got the message, and you are going to have to take the African-American boys and give them some weapons and take them out of the supply and train them, because we're losing this war. He says, oh no, I can't do that. You're going to have to do this. So he's reluctantly called Eisenhower. And he said, I got something for you. You're going to have to take those African-American boys that are in your supply depot and train them. You have to put them in the tanks. You have to put them in, give them weapons and train them in the Marines, the Montfort Points. And I said, this is not going to work. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put them in, I'm going to give them to Patton. Patton was the guy with the 2 guns on the side. I'll teach them a lesson. So they trained them. And some of the trainers, of course, was these young men between the ages of 17 and 21 at Tuskegee. And some of the young men up in Harlem to buy in these tanks. And Patton says, I'm going to teach them a lesson, make sure that they can back down. So he sent them to North Africa to fight against Field Marshal Rommel. And I have footage and books to prove this, what I'm saying. So Field Marshal Rommel had the British Army about to annihilate them and get them to surrender. So Patton sent these young boys with these tanks, and what they figured out was the Tuskegee Airmen flew low enough to figure out all the tricks that Field Marshal Rommel did, and the result was that they beat Field Marshal Rommel, they saved the Britishers' lives, and Field Marshal Rommel went to Berlin, and they were these heroes. So now that didn't work, did it? They won. So now we're going to teach them another lesson. So they put them against the Panzer Division. So you know about the Panzers, #1 tank military group in the history of military from Germany. Now we're marching towards Berlin, and these boys in these tanks cut a wide berth in the front of the Arrow, 30 miles wide, and they ran out of gas. So they radioed back to headquarters for some more gas, and they said 75 tankers full of gasoline, bumper to bumper at 100 miles an hour to refuel the tanks. It's called the Red Ball Express. The Red Ball Express has been in many movies. Only one black actor was ever been in it, but they were really all African American. So now, 63 made it. They refueled the tanks. They go across this river, and they break a wall down. And that wall was Buchenwald. Then they went a little further, and they broke another wall down, and that was Dachau. And then the third wall was Auschwitz. So myself and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar are sitting there in Lincoln Center in New York for the reunion of those Jews and those tank battalion and those people from Tuskegee, reunion for the first time since they freed them. Now there's your truth. What a wonderful thing that school is never out. So my best friend, the late George C. Scott, who played Patton and won an Oscar, he came up and he said, "Oh, well, what's this, Louis?" I said, "Well, that's the reunion of the people from the Tuskegee Airmen and the motorized battalion from New York and Alabama who won the war, and they were the front of the Arrow, and they rescued the Jews. The Jews thought they had gone to hell because they'd never seen a black man before." This is the truth. They were at Lincoln Center. I have the book. It's called The Liberators. So now George says, "Well, that's not in my movie." I said, "I don't know about your movie, but this is the truth here." So my best friend, George C. Scott, gave his Oscar back. Now that's a deep friend, huh? So now I'm looking at this diversity, which is a wonderful thing here for Indiana. And that's how I was raised back in the 30s and the 40s. My heroes, of course, were Roy Rogers, Superman and Batman and Robin and Captain Marvel and Hopalong Cassidy. I couldn't find nobody until later on. It was Jackie Robinson, but I didn't know nothing about. Those are my heroes. So I was troubled one weekend, and my friend said, "What's troubling you?" I said, I love Hopalong Cassidy, Roy Rogers, but none of those guys, I don't look like none of those guys. So the gift of a lifetime from this diverse society that was raised after the Depression and everybody was poor is my best friend, my white guy, my friend, my first roommate said, "Oh man, that doesn't matter. You're Superman today. You're Superman." So I was Superman. I got my mother's towel wrapped around my neck and jumped off the first stoop in the Coney Island And that's how I got this gap in my teeth. But the thing that that young white man told me when I was 12 years old, that you can be Superman too. It resonates to you young men and women today. Those lessons that we used to give to one another, to our parents, that connection from, I had a great grandmother who lived to be 115, and she was responsible for raising me and my cousins, and then taking care of and sending the message down to my grandmother, and sent the message down to my mother, and to me. There was a continuum. Now you can identify with the exodus from the south to the north, how we were like this. We had to be, right? There wasn't no time for no messing around. So before your hand hit the doorknob, you had to be clean. Your hair had to be done. You had to be dressed properly. You had to have respect for your elders. You had to have respect for the opposite sex. You had to have an attitude of gratitude and tunnel vision from your house to the school and back, because we ain't got no time for you to be messing around. That thing has disappeared, has it not? So I've, at this age, the last quadrant, as they say, I've devoted to trying to put that back into place. The Jews call it a synagogue. I call it a shamba center, which is a Swahili word meaning farm, where you plant these seeds. I think these young people who are going crazy, who are shooting each other, are kind of like asking, how far can I get away? What can I get away with? Nobody's paying attention to them, and you get what you get if you don't pay attention. So I found a success with these young people. They kind of see me now, and most of them do stop and give me some time. So I'm very grateful that God has put me in this particular position of see-through to tell them that now we have full circle. How many people believe in God? How many people believe that He sends us signals of what we have to do? And His signals are hurricanes and tsunamis and earthquakes and irregular weather. So I think He does that to our bodies too. As I can contest, I can tell you that has happened to me. So I've used to have my my awards, and I got my money, and I lived in Malibu and raised my kids and had this great car. And something was wrong. What's wrong with this picture? And it was called the inside job. And that inside job we had, and some of us still have, from back in the old days in the African American place and in all other towns when times were hard. We had to rely on some internal condition to keep us to survive. And I think that God sent that place in the 29 to test our faith in this country. Now, a lot of tests have come here. We have wars, and I think today He's sending us a signal about diversity, which you all believe in. What does it take for us to get to the next level? It takes the absence, obviously, of racism. You live and personify that. What does that take? It's been in our DNA all these years. We just can't wake up in the morning and say, I'm not going to be a racist anymore. We have to do a certain kind of steps, and God has dictated those steps. So what I do, and I don't tell you what to do, but I have to tell you what I do. And hopefully that's a program of attraction for y'all. It touches my heart to see such a diversity right here in this room, because you got a great head start. But what can I do to make an African American neighborhood the most attractive neighborhood in the city? Woo, that scratches your head. But I want to get my kids off the street before the cops get them off the street. So if I have dreams about getting better as a people, maybe I should reassume that responsibility, that before that child's hand touches the doorknob, there's got to be some lessons. I have a feeling they don't know. They can't be eloquent and tell you what they need, but maybe we should be sensitive to know what they need. And they need some kind of lessons of diploma, some kind of disciplines of before you hit that doorknob, let me check you out. And then it has to resonate in the streets. And I remember those neighborhoods because I could not wait to get to those clubs and eat that food and listen to the culture and the ministers and the nightclubs. That was the place to be. I had a great grandmother, as I said before, who died at the age of approximately 115 years old. She had the job of raising me and my cousins, and we had to sleep sometimes hand to foot. Because and we had planted, we had the sweet potatoes in the yard, and the collard greens, and everything was done by hand. And I remember we having a whooping cough thing, and she went out in the yard and did something. She put it on my chest with some hot flannel. And the next morning I was up to school. Everybody else was sick home, but we. And if you're old enough now, how many people remember 3 6s and black draft? All right, something about that culture. Perhaps when we declare ourselves free in this country, maybe there's something back there that we have to go back and get. And add that to the American soup with no revenge, no anger, no resentment, because it turns out to be that revenge and anger has caused cancers and high blood pressure and diabetes. It's killing us. It's still going, I'll show you. So maybe we should throw all that out the window and contribute to this whole American pot. So it's not Richard Stans I'm talking about. It's for which it stands. So if we're free, maybe we should figure out what that freedom is. And my great-grandmother, I talked about the episode I said last night, she only lied to me one time. She said, this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. You know the rest, don't you? So, one day she was the mother of the First Baptist Church of Sheepshead Bay. And she had 2 lady friends who were the deaconesses. And they used to sit there on Sunday morning before church and drink some coffee. And one of the ladies said, quite seriously, said, you know what? I think I'm getting a little forgetful. See now, I went to get something out of the refrigerator, and I stood there for about 10 minutes trying to remember what I wanted to get out of the refrigerator. And I said, I know what you're talking about, because I stood in my closet for 25 minutes trying to remember, what am I doing standing in the closet? And my great-grandmother said, nah, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. About how old and senile you're getting. Look at me. I'm at least 10 years older than both of you. Thank God. Who is it? Somebody answer the door. She was responsible for planting certain seeds in me. She couldn't read. She couldn't write. She dipped a whole lot of railroad mill snuff. And she had a rocking chair. And she lived as long. And when the youngest cousin went to Long Island and got married, she went to bed and sneezed. And that was it. But she left in me, whenever I listened to her, everything was all right. And whenever I didn't, everything was not. And that's in my book. So now I listen to her. I listen to him every day. Listen to her every day. And she tells me a couple of things. One time when I thought I was the best thing since chitlins, I had a girl on each arm, had Robert Hall clothes and some floor-shine shoes. And she said, come here, boy. Let me tell you something. God was here before you got here. You hear why you here, and he's gonna be here a long time after you're gone. So you may as well calm down and let him run things. So let's try and do that today. And when you think it's an overwhelming task to get these kids off the street and get these guns away, and these kids are going uncontrollable, I get my lessons again from my great-grandmother, who is the voice of God to me even now, as she says, when you think that things are overwhelming, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And if you turn your head in that journey today, it's amazing what things happen in your path toward the promised land. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your ears. Thank you.